Alright, so I came here looking for a trunk particle board. Figured since I was in this part of town, I'd swing in here because I always forget. They're not that expensive. Like, usually if you can find people selling them, they'll basically give it to you because it's worth almost nothing. The issue is the shipping. Shipping is super expensive, so I need to find one local. Or if you live anywhere near Cincinnati, or if you're going to be at the shootout this year and you have the trunk particle board for an Evo or a Lancer that you don't want or will sell to me cheaply, gladly take it off your hands. Since they're not open, let's talk more about the Evo X MR. So there are 5 reasons why you should consider the Evo X MR the best Evo to buy. 1, they're the fastest. 2, they handle the best. 3, it's a more livable car day to day. 4, if you're shopping for an Evo, which you obviously are probably if you're watching this, or you're just obsessed with Evos like me, Evo MRs almost always look nicer, or almost always in better shape. And 5, it's wifey approved. Stock for stock, an MR will beat a GSR around a track. And in a straight line. The dual clutch, just way faster than you can shift. And yes, I know everybody who buys an Evo says they're gonna mod, but the fact of the matter is, 63% of Evos never get modded. Of those 63%, only 11% mod more than 100 wheel horsepower. That means that only 4% of Evo 10s mod more than what the SST can handle 10 years ago. Today, the SST can handle so much more. There's so many options you can do as far as building them up and everything. Okay, so I made up all those numbers. That should have been pretty obvious to you. For one thing, they were 4, 63, and 11, which is, well, anyways, you know how those numbers go. For second, how on earth would I even know those numbers? The point is, I know everybody who buys an Evo says, oh, well, I'm gonna mod. I've already got my mod list. Well, I can write a mod list down. I have one. I made one years ago for this car. We'll see how far we've gotten. My point is, people get so hung up on the fact that the MR can only handle so much more power, but then they never even get that far, you know? So I just think if you're truly honest with yourself, and if you're one of these people that are buying the Evo and like, you know, well, I'm going to leave it stock for now, or, you know, pretty much stock, but after a few years, then I'm really going to mod it big. Are you really? And if so, I mean, your financial situation at that point would be so different that, you know what, if you bought an MR and maybe did a couple bolt-ons and drove it for a couple years and decided like, you know what, I'm in a financial position now where I really am going to do some big motor build, that's fine. Sell the MR and buy a GSR at that point. But don't not buy an MR because you might mod big numbers way down in the future. Dude, this lady's like freaking out. She's like, what? What is he doing? He's holding the camera. It's okay. He turned around to come back and see more. What is this crazy lady doing?
What are you doing?
I'm sorry?
What are you doing?
Recording a video?
Oh, are you?
Yeah? Huh.
She's like, what, Mom? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Literally 2 days in a row, I've had people alter their course to come see what I'm doing. It's very odd. I kind of get the first guy because he saw that I was shooting a video. He just wanted to be nosy and know what kind of video. Her, on the other hand, what are you doing? Shooting a video? Like, I don't know, painting a portrait? What's it look like I'm doing? I got distracted with that lady, but my point is, and I may have said this already, I don't know, I'll look in the edit, but my point is, don't let the SST be a limiting factor. I owned the SST Evo X MR, and I've driven a few GSRs, and, you know, I did a video a couple weeks ago driving an Evo X GSR, and was saying like, yeah, I should definitely get a manual again. But then when I'm not in it and I think back, it's like, I still really do like the SST. I go back and forth. That day, gun to the head, yeah, GSR all the way. Prior to that day, MR. Now, a couple weeks later, I'm like, I don't know which one I want. I like them both. If it were going to be my daily, like if I'm going to keep this car and buy another Evo for me, not for the wife, mostly the drive, but for me, I would probably buy an MR, because why not? I already have a manual Evo. Or I would buy whatever the best deal that I found. You know, it would just kind of be like whatever one I found. I wouldn't really have a preference. You know, if it happened to be a GSR, but it was a great deal, a good car and everything, then yeah, maybe I'd buy a GSR again. I think I would be completely happy with either, but I still think I would lean more to the MR, to be honest. Now, the wife, she really wants a manual. She did not care for the SST as much because she mostly drove it in automatic, and it's just not a great car to drive in automatic. She didn't really get any enjoyment out of the paddles, and I understand some people don't. I actually did. I found it really engaging and really fun to drive, and I know some people do. I mean, I see videos of people driving around in like cars that have true automatics with the paddles, and they're driving around in paddle mode. You know, that's how my ISF was. And that to me is actually kind of weird. I would drive the ISF in manual mode from like a start or like a low start. But once I got to the point where I wasn't accelerating anymore and I was like decelerating or just driving, the paddles were not fun anymore. Number 2, it handles the best. There are 3 main parts that answer why it handles better than the GSR. First is the Bilstein shocks. Second is the BBS wheels. And third is the 2-piece brake rotors. Now sure, you can add all these things to your GSR. Better suspension, better lighter wheels, and better brakes. However, to actually get a suspension setup better than the Bilsteins, to actually get wheels lighter than the MR BBS, and to actually get brakes that are as good or better than the ones on the MR, actually costs quite a bit more than you think it would. Not to mention, if you're going out and buying a car, you assume that all this stuff is in good working order, although not necessarily new, because these cars aren't new anymore. That's quite a little investment up front. If you're thinking like, all right, I want a GSR and I'm going to immediately upgrade these 3 things and make it to make up for the shortcomings that the MR has over the GSR, I mean, that's going to be a couple grand easily, and that's assuming used prices, and that's assuming you sell some of your parts to cover that cost. If you just want to go out and buy those parts, especially new, I mean, thousands of dollars. Living with it daily. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that being able to put a car in automatic mode, even if it's not the smoothest automatic ever, is going to be more livable in daily driving traffic than a manual. I mean, that's just how it's going to be. I'm not saying that reason alone is why you should do it. But let's be honest, anybody who's ever sat in traffic knows that, hey, I'd much rather be in an automatic right now than a manual. Other benefits to the 6-speed. Oh, phone call. And this is going to be dependent on how you drive, but seeing that it does have an extra gear, you can drive a little bit lower on the RPMs, which will make the ride quieter. You know, if you're got clients or people in your car, or family or kids, if you're in phone calls a lot, and, you know, slightly better gas mileage. In addition to the 6th gear making the car a little quieter, the MR, generally speaking, has more sound deadening. Combine all those factors and you're going to have a quieter ride. And as somebody who's owned an MR and an RS simultaneously, I can speak volumes for what a difference that quieter ride can make at times. Some of this may seem silly. Evo, worried about whether or not your RPMs are a little bit lower or a little bit quieter, gas mileage and such. You know, there are those days where you're like, man, it would be nice to just get in something that's just a little bit nicer for whatever reason. And no matter how much you love the car, you're gonna have those days. So you gotta make sure that you love the car enough that on those low days, you still love it. I will say with the MR not having a clutch pedal, but if you have an exhaust drone at a certain RPM, if you have a manual like with a clutch, and you know at 1500 RPMs or whatever, it's gonna drone really loud or something, you just push in the clutch when you're coming to a stop. You can't really do that with the MR. If you haven't noticed already, take a minute the next time you're looking for an Evo to buy and click on a couple MRs and click on a couple GSRs just at random and see which ones look nicer to you. Because I'd be willing to wager that the MRs are going to look better on the inside and outside, and that the MRs are almost always going to be stock or very close to it, where the GSRs are almost always going to be modded. And that is because the people who plan the mod, or rather the people who plan not the mod, are more inclined to buy the MR. Not to say there aren't people who buy the GSR who plan not the mod, but the MR does seem to attract more of those people. We'll know here in a second because I'm going to turn and there's no way he's turning this way. Yep, there he goes. Gonna pull me over on my own street. Wow. So wow, this video is taking forever now and I vaguely remember where I'm at in it. I'm pretty sure we're down to the last point, and that is wifey approved. If you are one of the car guys who married a girl who refuses to learn how to drive a stick, I feel like we have other questions to ask you first, but we'll ignore those for now and just try to solve the issue here, and that is, it's not an issue. You can have an Evo. And I said wife, but it can go the other way. So whomever your significant other is, teach them how to drive a stick. If you don't know how to teach them, watch my video on it. It's super easy. Other than that, that's pretty much it, you know. So you probably didn't take multiple days to watch this video as I've taken to shoot it, but to recap, 1, in stock form, they're the fastest. 2, they handle the best in stock form. 3, there's some daily driving livability benefits. And that's the wifey calling me right now. Probably wondering why I'm late. Well, it's because there's a funeral procession and we're just chilling here. 4, if you're shopping for a used Evo, MRs are almost always going to be in better shape than a GSR. And lastly, it's spousal approved. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it, subscribe to follow along with my Evo build that is ongoing. I should have the first video out for that hopefully in the next few days. I'm still waiting on the shipments to arrive, so as soon as I have the parts, you guys will know. Shootout is coming next month, so I will be there. And this portion of the vlog is a mess because I'm so focused on traffic right now. Three, it's a more modern. Wow, seriously, traffic? Train tracks open up? What just happened here? Yeah, I said it. It's fastest. Faster. Yeah, it's faster. It's the fastest. Like I said, you should probably just teach them how to drive a stick. But regardless, you can do that now. But regardless, you can have an Evo that's a manual. But regardless, you can have an Evo that doesn't require having a 3 pedal. But regardless, the Evo MR allows you. But regardless, you can have a manual